I was sitting in the passenger seat of my own car when my oldest son said, "Mom, this is going to be so good for you. You'll thank us later." I turned my head and looked at him. David's hands were tight on the steering wheel, knuckles pale. He kept his eyes on the road like he was afraid of mine. In the back seat, my younger son Mark scrolled on his phone. "I'm 73, not stupid." "You already told me this is just a tour," I said, "not a decision." "Of course, Mom," Mark piped up from the back. "Just a tour, chill. We just want you to see your options." Your options. That's what people say right before they take them away. The place came into view as we turned. Sunny Pines Senior Living, fake brick, big glass doors, a fountain in the front courtyard that wasn't turned on yet because it was only March and still cold in Ohio. "There it is," David said brightly. "Looks nice, right?" It did look nice, too nice. The kind of place that smells like lemon cleaner and loneliness. I thought about my little blue house at the end of Maple Street, the one my husband Jim and I bought in 1978 when interest rates were awful and we didn't care because we were 27 and in love. The one where I'd planted the maple tree out front that now shaded the whole yard. The one they were suddenly so eager for me to downsize from. "We're just looking," I said again, more to myself than to them. David parked, unbuckled his seatbelt, and pasted on that smile he uses for his boss. "Trust us, Mom," he said. "We're just worried about you living alone. You fell last month. You could have hit your head." "I slipped on one throw rug," I said, "and I caught myself. I'm fine." But they were already out of the car, opening my door like I was a fragile piece of furniture. Inside, Sunny Pines smelled like coffee and air freshener. A pretty young woman with a name tag that said Kelsey, community director, bounded toward us in heels. "Mrs. Parker," she chirped, "we're so happy to have you here today. You have such wonderful sons. They've been talking about you for weeks." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" I said. Kelsey launched into a speech about independent living apartments, 24-hour support, and planned social activities. She kept using words like vibrant and active in that careful way young people do when they're afraid of saying old. We sat in a little office just off the lobby. There were brochures neatly fanned out on the table, smiling silver-haired couples playing cards, doing yoga, laughing over salads. Kelsey slid a clipboard toward me. "Before we tour," she said, "we just need a quick intake form and some standard consents. Nothing binding, just so we have your information." I looked at the clipboard. Name, date of birth, address, emergency contacts, medical stuff. Then, halfway down the second page, smaller type. "Greater than I consent to Sunny Pines Senior Living providing room, board, and care services, and authorize blank line to coordinate financial arrangements on my behalf." My pen hovered. "What does this part mean?" I asked. "Oh, that's just in case you decide to move in," Kelsey said quickly. "It lets us talk to your family about billing. Totally standard." "I'm not moving in," I replied. "We're just looking." "Right," she said, laughing too loudly. "Of course, just looking. Your sons wanted to get all the boring stuff out of the way so you can enjoy the tour." I looked at David. He avoided my eyes. "Mom, it's just paperwork," he said. "You know how these places are. Liability, HIPAA. You sign everything at the doctor's office without freaking out." "You want me to sign consents to live somewhere I haven't even seen yet?" I asked. Mark sighed in that exaggerated way that used to get him grounded when he was 13. "Mom," he said, "can we not make this difficult?" That's when the little alarm bell in my head went from faint ringing to full-on siren. I put the pen down. "We'll take the tour first," I said. "Then I'll decide what I sign." Kelsey's smile flickered, just for a second. "Sure," she said, "whatever makes you comfortable." The tour was nice enough. Wide halls, clean rooms, an activity room where a handful of residents sat half watching a game show, a small library with shelves of donated paperbacks, a dining room with fake candles on the tables. An old man with a veteran's cap nodded at me as we walked past. A woman in a wheelchair stared out the window at nothing. "See," Mark whispered. "Mom, it's way better than rattling around that old house alone." I stopped and looked at him. Are you there when I'm at that old house? I asked. He blinked. What? Are you there at night when I watch my shows? Are you there when I make my soup? When I weed my garden? When I have coffee with Liz next door? When I go to church on Sundays? He shifted his weight. That's not the point. The point is, David cut in, we can't keep worrying about you falling and no one knowing. This way there's staff, there's help. We have careers, kids, lives. We can't always be on call. There it was, not even dressed up. We got back to Kelsey's office. The clipboard was still on the table, the pen laid neatly across it. Take your time, she said, closing the door behind us. I'll give you all a minute. The second the latch clicked, David leaned forward. Mom, he said, we've been talking to Kelsey for weeks. We put down a deposit to reserve you a unit. It's a good one, by the window near the elevator. If we don't finalize today, we lose the spot and the money. The money from who? I asked. He cleared his throat. Us. Really? I tilted my head, because the statement from my savings account last month showed a big withdrawal I didn't remember making. His face went blank. You went through my mail? He asked. I went through my mail, I said. In my house, where I pay the bills. Don't turn this around on me. Mark rubbed his eyes. This is exactly what we were afraid of, he muttered. Paranoia, confusion. This is what the brochure said. The brochure? I repeated. You needed a brochure to tell you what's going on in your own mother's head? I pushed the clipboard away from me. I'm not signing, I said. The air in the room went heavy. Fine, David said finally, voice cool. Don't sign. But the hard truth is, Mom, we already signed some things. The house is on the market. The realtor has a key. This is happening. We're just trying to make it smoother for you. The room tilted. What do you mean the house is on the market? I whispered. We had you sign the listing agreement weeks ago, Mark said. Remember that day we brought over pizza and you signed some insurance papers? That was the listing. We got a great cash offer. Closing is in 2 weeks. I felt like someone had poured ice water into my veins. You tricked me, I said. My voice sounded small to my own ears. You used my grief. Grief? David snapped. Dad's been gone 3 years. You sit in that house like a museum. You don't need all that space. This is what responsible families do. We're not monsters, we're planning. Planning. The word stuck in my chest. I thought of Jim, of the way he'd held my hand in that hospital bed and said, Promise me you won't let them run your life, Maggie. Help them, sure, but don't let them treat you like luggage. Get me my purse, I said quietly, standing up. We're done here. We're not leaving until you sign, David said. Then you'll be here a long time, I replied. I opened the door. Kelsey was hovering right outside, like she'd been listening. Everything okay? She chirped, eyes flicking nervously from me to the boys. Do you have a taxi number? I asked her. Or a shuttle? I need to go home. Her expression shifted, just a little. Something older, more serious came into her eyes. Of course, she said. Let me grab that for you. Mom, David started. I raised a hand. Not another word, I said. Not until I've talked to someone who isn't trying to sell my life out from under me. The taxi driver was a woman about my age with gray braids and a laugh that shook her whole shoulders. Sunny Pines, huh? She said as I climbed in. You moving in or breaking out? Somewhere in between, I said. On the way home, I asked her, Do you know any good lawyers around here? The kind that knows about old ladies and houses and kids who think they're smarter than their parents? She barked out a laugh. Do I? She said. Honey, this is Ohio. Every block's got a lawyer, but if you want one who doesn't treat you like a potted plant, try Carla Jenkins. She got my aunt's house back from her grandson. I can give you her card. By the time she dropped me off at my house, I had Carla's number written on the back of a receipt. Except it wasn't quite my house anymore. A plastic, for sale, pending sign was staked in my front yard. My knees went weak. I walked up the steps, my steps, the ones I'd painted red myself one summer, and fumbled in my purse for my keys. They didn't fit. They'd changed the lock. I stood there a moment on my own porch, holding keys that suddenly belonged to nowhere. Then I took a deep breath, sat on the top step, and pulled out my phone. Carla Jenkins' office was in a small brick building over a nail salon. No fancy windows, no mahogany paneling, just a plaque and a door that stuck a little when I opened it. She was in her 50s with tight curls, a navy blazer, and reading glasses hanging from a chain. "Ms. Parker," she said, standing to shake my hand. "Come in. Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about Sunny Pines, the clipboard, the deed, the insurance papers, the for sale sign, the new locks, my son's words, "This is happening." She listened without interrupting, just like the taxi driver said she would. When I finished, she leaned back, steepled her fingers, and let out a slow breath. "Okay," she said. "Couple things. 1, I'm very glad you didn't sign anything at Sunny Pines. 2, your sons are in a lot more trouble than they realize." She pulled out a pad and started scribbling. "This is called elder financial exploitation," she said. "They use deception to get you to sign away control of your property. Depending on the details, we may be looking at fraud, forgery, even criminal charges." The words were big and ugly and heavy. "They're still my sons," I said automatically. She nodded. "I know," she said. "You're allowed to love people who hurt you. You're not required to let them keep doing it." She laid out the plan in the calm, clipped tone of someone who'd done this more than once. First, she'd pull the listing and sale contract from the realtor and title company. If my signature was buried in a stack of insurance papers, she'd argue lack of informed consent and fraud. Second, she'd file an emergency injunction with the court to freeze the sale before closing. Third, she'd send a very strong letter to David and Mark, explaining that any further attempt to change title, lock me out, or force me into a facility could result in criminal charges. "Do you want to go nuclear?" she asked. "Press charges? Or do you want to use the threat of that to get your house and autonomy back?" I thought of David at 6, bringing me dandelions, of Mark at 13, crying when I caught him stealing from my purse, of both of them at their father's funeral, standing a little too far from me, already orbiting other lives. "I want my house back," I said, "and I want them to understand that I am not their project. Beyond that, I don't want them in jail. I just want them scared enough to leave my life alone until they remember how to act like my sons again." Carla nodded. "Then that's what we'll aim for," she said. "But I'm going to be straight with you, Ms. Parker. Once we start this, you can't cave because they cry. They will pressure you. They will guilt you. You have to decide right now that you're choosing yourself." I swallowed. For most of my life, I'd chosen everybody else. "I choose me," I said quietly. The next 10 days were a blur of calls and documents. Carla moved fast. The court granted a temporary restraining order in less than 48 hours, freezing the house sale. The title company, suddenly very nervous about being dragged into a fraud case, faxed over every document with my name on it. There it was, my signature on a listing agreement I barely remembered, dated 2 days after the anniversary of Jim's death. I could still see the pizza box on the table in my mind. Carla highlighted whole paragraphs. "No explanation, no separate counsel, no disclosure," she muttered. "They're toast." She sent a letter to my sons that made even me feel sorry for them for half a second. Words like criminal liability, civil damages, and revocation of agency popped out like sharp edges. 3 days later, David showed up at Carla's office during one of our meetings, red-faced and furious. "You're turning my own mother against me," he accused, jabbing a finger in her direction. Carla didn't even flinch. "I'm representing your mother's interests," she said calmly. "Something you stopped doing the second you decided to treat her house like a piggy bank." He rounded on me. "Mom, what are you doing?" he demanded. "We're family. You don't drag family into court." "You're the one who brought lawyers into this," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "You just thought I'd never get my own." "You weren't supposed to find out like this," he said. "We had a plan." "Your plan was to shove me into Sunny Pines and sell my home before I could say no," I cut in. "You planned everything except the part where I still have a brain." He ran his hands through his hair. "We were trying to protect you," he insisted weakly. "From what?" I asked. From my couch? From my garden? From my own life? No, David. You were trying to protect yourselves from the inconvenience of having an aging mother. His shoulders sagged. This case will not go well for you, Carla said almost gently. If it goes to trial, a jury will not like what they hear. You're on a very short road to losing more than a house. Here's what we're offering. You sign a corrective deed putting the house back in Ms. Parker's name only. You reimburse her for any funds taken without clear consent. She drops the civil suit and doesn't pursue criminal charges. That is the deal. Take it, or I start scheduling depositions. He looked at me, eyes wet and angry. You'd really do this to your own son? He whispered. I'm not doing anything to my son, I said. I'm protecting myself from a man who forgot he was one. He didn't answer. But 2 days later, the corrective deed was signed. My name, and only my name, went back on the title. It's been 8 months now. The for sale sign is gone. My key fits in the lock again. I had the front door repainted the same blue it was when we first moved in. I planted new flowers around the maple tree. Liz next door comes over every Sunday after church for coffee, and we talk about everything from grandkids to blood pressure meds to the ridiculous price of eggs. David and Mark? Well, Mark sent a text. I'm sorry. I didn't think it through. I replied, I hope someday you do. David hasn't said much beyond the bare minimum. He drops by once a month, stands on the porch, asks if I need anything. I tell him the truth. I'm okay. Maybe one day we'll talk about something real again. Maybe we won't. That part is out of my hands. What is in my hands is my life. Carla helped me set up a trust so that when I die, the house won't be something anyone can casually sign away. I chose a neutral trustee and left detailed instructions. Some money will go to the church. Some to a scholarship fund for nursing students at the community college. Liz gets the maple tree and the porch swing. The boys will get something too, but not everything, and certainly not by trickery. Every once in a while, I drive past Sunny Pines. The fountain's on now. The front garden is pretty. An old man sits on a bench by the door, watching cars go by. Sometimes I think, maybe when I'm ready, I'll choose a place like that. On my terms. Not as luggage, but as a person. For now, I like my little crooked halls and squeaky floors. I like waking up under the same roof where I raised my boys and kissed my husband goodnight thousands of times. I like turning my own key in my own door. If you're listening to this and your children are waving papers in your face saying, "It's just paperwork, Mom," I want you to remember my name. I'm Margaret Parker. I'm 73. They tried to move me to assisted living without my consent and sell my house out from under me. They forgot one thing. I might be old, but I'm still living.